What's up, guys? In this video we have an extremely special guest for you, and we want to do an interview with the main tank from the World First Guild from Method. We have Treckie with us today, and coming in to help me do this interview, as always, is my good buddy Aki. Aki, how you doing?
How's it going? I'm doing good.
Good. And Treckie, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Good. Aki, you're going to actually, how we're going to do this interview, guys, is we're just going to rotate questions for Treckie and kind of get into a little bit of discussion, mainly covering the Siege of Orgrimmar, the race to World First, and kind of give you guys a little bit of an insight, if we can, into kind of what goes on and what Trekkie's impressions were of this tier. So, Aki, go ahead and fire away on the first question.
Right, so the first question we want to check out with you is, what was your reaction when you got up the day of reset and realized that Blood Legion had already killed 10 bosses? Were you kind of worried, or were you excited?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad. It pretty much happens every single tier. Half or 3/4 of the instance is pretty much always cleared when we actually wake up. And
Yeah.
I guess we're pretty used to it right now. But it's always weird seeing them always getting a lot of world first before we even get to start, and it's a weird feeling. But at the same time, it's pretty nice to knowing that half of the bosses we spent time on PTR was completely wasted because it just faced wrong anyway.
And going off that too, real quick, you know, I know that you said half and 3/4 of the tier before. I was going through the last few races where you guys were really kind of neck and neck in 25s, and it just seemed that, you know, 10 bosses was just so much raid time to overcome in that first lockout. You know, was there any real issues going into that, or anything that you guys were, you know, strategizing ahead of time or anything like that?
We have pretty. We always expect the worst when we go into the tier. Have as developed strategies or whatever we can from PTR, as if the bosses are gonna be really, really hard. And then it just turns out that we can scrap those, most of those, and just face it. But obviously, we still learn a lot from PTR, and
Right.
still give us that advantage that we can just face all them. Because to be honest, they're not face all. It's just that we have a very, very good strategy usually for them.
Right. Now, rolling right into that, I'm kind of going to skip around on questions here, Aki. Rolling right into that, the thought kill, for example, when they hot fixed you guys at 20% and just killed your raid when you brought 10 healers. How do you develop kind of strategies as a World First Guild? I mean, obviously you don't have to give away any trade secrets here, but you know, when you go into things like PTR, and then when you do see things for the first time on live, you know, no one has ever seen these fights really, so there's no add-ons, there's no boss mods, there's no anything like that. How do you kind of break down setting strategy? Is it Dungeon Journal? Is it, you know, what do you guys use to really test out certain mechanics? You know, what's your mindset when going in and really developing a strategy on a boss that nobody's seen before?
It's a bit hard to explain because it depends so much on the fight. But in general, rule of thumb, I would just say that it's just common sense and just having good players to be able to play safe the first few times, get a general feel of what kind of strategy is going to be viable, and how. You gotta think a bit on how the developers sort of intended the boss to be killed. But more often than not, that's just developers don't actually think of a way to kill it. It's just more that they put a lot of abilities there and just let us have fun with it.
Right.
But on some easier, you can obviously see that there are some mechanics there you're supposed to counter with some other abilities, and you need to sort of try to plan for that. As for Thok, for example, we really just saw that very early on PTR, and just realized that's a very big oversight from Blizzard, really, because he starts casting this the AoE faster and faster,
Right.
and then it just at some point it just doesn't go faster. He has other things to do, so he delays his interrupts or his casts with other stuff. So we never tried it on PTR. We just pretty much said that.
Now,
it's just gonna be able to keep it there.
Now, information like that, when you guys come across or stumble across a strategy like that that will work, now typically you probably assume that it's an oversight, but do you save that information in your back pocket to try to push a kill before, say, other people would get there and then they hotfix it afterwards? Or is that something that you tell developers kind of while you're in the PTR? It sounds like you kind of put that one in your back pocket, but...
Yeah, that one we pretty much put in our back pocket because we never really tried it, and it was like one of those things that we don't really need to practice this strategy, we don't really need to test it. It's like once this goes live, it's like, okay, we can try this strategy, go 2-3 pulls, see if it's viable or not, and if it is, well, then we should be able to snatch a kill. If it isn't, well, then okay, we wasted 3-4 tries testing the strategy. So, well, if we would test that on PTR, we're pretty sure they would fix it.
Right,
They would
right.
see it,
And yeah, and what we actually did try though, we tried with some road mechanics, trying to kite, and we actually kited the boss for so long that he just went back into phase 1 without opening the doors, and the GMs just didn't know what happened and asked it to try to repeat that because they didn't see it at that moment. But that one they fixed.
Okay.
So we had to try to prolong the phase 2 because when we went into it in the beginning, it was just like we just thought, well, the poison one is pretty annoying, the fire one is pretty annoying, and the frost one is pretty annoying. Let's just try not getting any of them.
Okay. And then Aki, you're
Still
up.
none of them. So,
But that's actually pretty much how it goes a lot of the times. It's like especially when you have abilities where you can choose. You have this ability which is annoying and this ability which isn't as annoying, and obviously you're gonna take that one and you're gonna do everything you can to try to go for the easier tactic, the one completely skip one if possible, or limit its attempt or time you spend in it.
Right.
that's kind of cool. So, sort of basing on that, what, in terms of mechanics, which was sort of, would you say was the biggest setback for your raid during the progression? Like, which one kind of gave you guys the most trouble?
I think Siegecrafter in terms of mechanics on the way the fight was supposed to be. It was a really good fight. There were very few hot fixes and bug fixes that were made to that fight. Actually, it was pretty solid. Even if when we stepped into it and had no idea about the timers or the bells, we just thought that was just such a crazy fight, and who could have designed such a bad boss. Once we actually got further into the fight and like got a rotation going, everyone just started liking it more and more, and just it felt so good actually just overcoming that.
Yeah. Very cool.
Otherwise, Treckie was obviously a boss where we struggled a lot on, but that was 90% due to bugs and not due to the fight being hard. I mean, it's a hard to fight, but it was really on the bugs that was keeping us back so much more.
Okay, and then going in off that too, then if that was a mechanic that you back during progression, like what was kind of your favorite fight? Like, was there a fight where you were just like, man, just everything about this fight, kind of whether it be your own play style or your own, things that you like to see in a boss fight? What was kind of your favorite progress fight?
I think it's a toss-up between Treckie and Siegecrafter. To be honest, it has to be one of the 3 later bosses because we spent so much more time on those compared to the others. The others just felt like I can barely remember half of the bosses because we killed them so fast. And it's like this tier is really only 3 bosses for us. And the Paragons of Treckie was an annoying fight in some aspects, but as a tank, it's probably the hardest fight I've ever tanked doing progression, and that for me makes it very challenging and very fun for me to do that fight.
Right.
Otherwise, Siegecrafter has just so many fun abilities as well.
I would imagine coming from, the pedigree of players that you're used to playing with, kind of having a fight that pushes you on a, personally to get better with the, the skill level and the dedication that you do put into the game, obviously, I would imagine that that's probably one of your favorite things is when there's something that, maybe you're not used to doing or using, your paladin or your whatever tune you were on at the time, to use different class mechanics to try to better yourself in the game. I would imagine that for somebody who plays at that higher caliber, that kind of thing is enjoyable for you guys. Probably your entire guild, more than just you in general. But
well, you really have to push yourself to like really try to do it. Like sure, enrage timers or like trying to get through a phase as fast as possible is always sort of fun. But when this kind of fight just pushes you to the limit and makes you have to be on your toes the whole fight, doing everything right, that's when it becomes really, really interesting. And especially as a tank, I feel like most of the fights you just pretty much you swap tanks when you get a debuff, and then you just stand there and try to survive, and that's pretty much it. And Paragons is so much more.
Okay.
Cool. And so you're saying that, you know, you spent a lot more time on those last 3 bosses. What was sort of your longest raid day, and how do you approach something like that? Like, you sort of say, look, we've got a 8 to 10 hour raid day today. We're going to take breaks at certain times. What's your schedule like on those longer days?
We have a general schedule that we try to keep as much as possible. It includes some breaks here and there. It's very fluent, so like we can always push a break a bit back and forth. We have some scheduled break around 3. We start usually like 12 in the midday, and then we have a break like 3 hours later after that, and then 4 hours after that we have a food break. And between those, it's a lot of shorter breaks, and then we have a suggested end time around 3 in the night, pretty much. But that's
Awesome.
always fluent. If we're really stuck on a boss, we feel like, well, we could go to bed a bit earlier, get some extra sleep, maybe think about the boss a bit, and then if we're really pushing for a kill, we just push it and just stay and until we kill it.
So what was the longest day that you spent this tier raiding?
I don't quite know. There's not really one day that stays out that much more than anything else. In
Just a lot of long
previous
days.
years, yeah. But in previous years, it's always been like the kill days, because like I said, we start the same day and we end the same day, and the only reason to really make that day longer would be if we're really going for a kill. So yeah, we didn't really have to do that at any point this tier. So I remember, yeah, indeed.
Fair enough.
I think maybe when we killed Paragons was probably the longest, because we had to kill, because that was on Tuesday, right before reset for us.
Right, yeah, because you wanted to get it right before it reset again, I guess.
Yeah, and then we obviously wanted to do Garage in the multiple groups as well, so...
Yeah. We all saw, kind of getting onto Garage there, we all saw the end of the Garage kill video where it was pretty much, Treckie versus Garage for the last couple of percent there. What was it like just, knowing that you were really much the only one alive for the world first kill, and just, that extra push of you just being there for a percent? And what was going through your head knowing that, if you died, it was a wipe and you were that close to a kill, and then to end up pushing the kill? What was it kind of like to be put in that situation?
I don't think I realized it when it happened, really, because first of all, like, there's an explosion and everyone dies, like right before we're actually killing. Everyone dies except for me, and I somehow survive it. And I was just like, okay, I see that everything is running to me. There's a wipe mechanic with shitloads of ads as well, so they're all running for me, and I know that I'm not going to survive this much more. And we had one really close wipe before at 0.7% HP. Where I actually used bubble as well, but we didn't have enough DPS on the boss at that point. So I was just really trying to bubble as late as possible, and the last few seconds I just ran away from the boss and just tried to keep a global cooldown ready for my bubble, really.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was one of the... Go ahead.
Sorry, on top of the Garage, do you think that Garage was worthy of an end of expansion boss? Sort of compared, against the Lich King, even, I mean, not end of the boss, but even Lei Shen. A lot of people talk about Lei Shen being one of the best fights they've ever done. How do you think Garrosh stood up against those?
I think Garrosh was, design-wise, a pretty okay boss. To end the expansion with, it has a lot of similarities to both Lei Shen and Ragnaros, of course. With a lot of transmission phases, and then you do the boss, and then obviously the last phase, which is very different on Garrosh because on Garrosh it's actually one of the easier phases. It's just that there's like no room for error and in that phase, but it's you only have to get it right one time, and then after that it's like pretty smooth sailing. There's obviously you can still fail on it, like we did, and that's what almost cost us the wipe there. But as to compared to other bosses, Lei Shen was definitely both a harder tuned fight and a better boss for your raid to get used to and to progress on.
And then kind of our final wrap-up question for you here is overall impressions of Siege of Orgrimmar. You know, how did you think it went? I know that there's been, you know, Blizzard's gotten some flack about how easy it was. Like you said, I mean, you almost blurred through the first, you know, 10, 11 bosses there. Was it something that, you know, is it an overall tier that you think it was okay, or did you think, you know, it could have been tuned a little bit, you know, scaled a little bit higher in difficulty as you went in, or what was kind of your overall thoughts of Siege?
I think it could have been scaled a little bit higher in the beginning, and maybe dragged down a little bit in the end. But if that would have caused the later bosses to be a lot easier, that would probably not have been optimal either. But really, I just don't know if I'm gonna enjoy killing the first 10 or 11 trash bosses before we actually get some actual rating on like these months of farm right now we have in front of us.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm most worried about, if that's gonna be boring or not.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that. You know, if I'm really hoping they don't delay it another 6 months like they did for when we were in DS. It just, I mean, that felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
But thank you, Treckie. Aki, do you have any other questions for Treckie before we let him go?
No, I think that's all. I just want to say thanks for giving us the opportunity to do this interview with you, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, and Aki, don't forget to thank him for my 10K. Don't ever forget to do.
Yep.
You're welcome, Nash.
All right, and thanks for coming, Treckie, and thanks for listening, guys. And I hope you like this video. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.